Good morning, everyone. It is officially 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the October edition of PI Fridays on the topic of attracting and retaining millennials. My name is Brandon Wilson, and I'm the training specialist here at Advisa. Today's webinar is going to be a little bit different from the normal format because we have a very special guest. And that guest is Cassandra Faurote, the founder and president of Total Reward Solutions, an organization that focuses on helping clients with compensation, benefits, and performance management. So Cassandra, welcome, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Brandon. Glad to be on this with you this morning. So I have over 25 years of experience in the human resources area, and with a concentration in compensation and benefits for about the last 15 years. Started the business about 11 years ago, and we basically help companies put in pay programs, incentive compensation, write job descriptions, FLSA analysis, just about anything you could think about in the compensation area. And we're often out and about speaking on various compensation matters.
That's great. Well, we're really excited to have you here with us, and it's really exciting because Cassandra is going to be adding some really critical information to our topic. Before we get started, I did want to take a minute to answer some frequently asked questions. And the first is that if you would like a recording of today's webinar, you can definitely get one. Just head over to the Client Resources page referenced on the slide. Note that it's not linked to on any of our pages, so make sure you jot it down. This page also houses our Access PI tutorials and many other tools and videos. It is very much worth your time. If you would like to sign up for more offerings like PI Fridays, you can definitely do that. Check out the Training Dates tab on our homepage at advisausa.com. As we go through today's presentation, feel free to write your questions in the question box on the right of your screen, and I'll make sure to take some time at the end to answer each one. So, all right, let's get right into it. And I want to start with a strategic backdrop. So why is this topic important? As of last year, millennials surpassed Gen Xers as the largest generation in the workplace. And by 2020, they are projected to represent 50% of the workforce. This is significant for a few reasons. By 2030, it's predicted that there will be 20% more jobs than workers in the U.S. And Europe is experiencing unprecedented demographic shifts with a clear trend towards a steep increase in the age 50-plus workers and decline in their younger cohorts. By 2025, 22% of the EU population will be greater than 65, with incoming generations declining. This could be the first rate inhibiting factor for growth and competitiveness. And as we all know, turnover is incredibly expensive, in 1 to 2 years of pay and benefits. So our ability to both attract and retain millennials is critical to long-term success within our organizations. So the statistics are really pretty clear. But what makes this incredibly tough is that many Gen Xers and baby boomers are finding this younger generation so difficult to understand. It's not unusual for me to hear participants in training say things like, why don't they just do their jobs? And why should we even try to keep them? They just move on every 2 years anyway. Well, there are many misconceptions about those generational differences, and it can be hard to see the world from their perspective. So today, I want to try and bridge that gap. It's not likely to eliminate the frustrations that are there, but hopefully it will give you some strategies as to how you can better attract, engage, and retain those millennials in our midst. So we're going to start on the attracting side. How can we attract millennials to our organizations? We'll tackle that topic from a couple different perspectives. The compensation and benefits side, which is where Cassandra is going to lend us her expertise, and then we'll shift to the organizational approach. Then we'll look at how we can better engage and retain those folks. So right now, I'd like to go ahead and hand over the reins to Cassandra to talk through how our organization can best attract millennials through the compensation and benefits plans.
Thank you. Well, as Brandon mentioned, by 2020, the millennials, and or often referred to as Generation Y, are going to represent 50% of our workforce. But I think an even more surprising number is that by 2025, they're going to represent 75% of the global workforce. So a big change here. We're going to move into talking about their core values and their motivation. So the millennials are well-traveled. They're global citizens, and many of them speak a second language. They grew up with hyper-involved parents and basically overscheduled lives. So they are the trophy kids. They are the ones that got all of the participation trophies. In addition to the core values that you can see here on the slide, they're also, it's realism, it's confidence, and it's extreme fun for them. As we look at what they're motivated by, they want what's called the total life package. Well, what does that mean? That means they want dress code, they want flexibility, they want fitness and health programs, and they definitely want technology. Constant and immediate feedback is important to them because they've been on teams all their lives and they're used to getting constant and immediate feedback. They also are very into meaningful work. If the job doesn't have meaning, then to them life doesn't have meaning. They do have very high financial expectations. We are going to see them do repeated job changes. It will be a challenge to retain these folks. One of the strong motivators for them is to work with their friends, and they will actually choose a job to be with their friends. They want to work with bright and creative people. And in terms of work-life balance, pulled a survey recently, 88% of them want work-life balance. And here's what's even more important. 77% of them expect, notice I said expect, flexible scheduling. So with the millennials, you're going to want to provide them with more than one task at a time, but you're not going to want to overwhelm them. Now, let's talk about their workplace characteristics. What do we kind of see happening with them? They want rapid career growth, and they want you to provide them a career path and to move them swiftly. They like technology, and as a matter of fact, to them, it's not a privilege. It's basically a no-brainer. They prefer instant messaging, text messages, blogs, and podcasts. So they not only want this immediate performance feedback, which we talked about, they also want it to be bi-directional. So in other words, they want to tell you how they think they're doing, as well as hear how you think they are doing. Again, remember, they've been praised lavishly by parents and teachers. This is the generation that's going to speak out. They do have a very positive, can-do attitude, and they do aim to make things happen. But you've got to encourage them and allow them to use the latest technology and positively challenge their interest, their abilities, and their achievements. And the millennials want a touch basis with their managers at least once a week. So we talk about this immediate performance feedback, the need for high touch points at least once a week. Now let's talk about, well, what are they looking for in compensation and in benefits? From the compensation standpoint, spot awards work really well with this group. They are a little more focused on salary at this point in their lives, and they're going to share pay increase information. To them, salaries are no longer a secret, like many of us have grown up believing. They're going to leave you if they believe their pay is unfair. So they're going to talk, and they're going to know, and if they think your pay is unfair, then you're going to have trouble retaining them. They're motivated by social recognition as well as charitable and travel awards. Non-financial incentives like group outings also can be very effective with the millennials. And right now, student loan aid is also very attractive because this group has some real concerns about their finances because they're coming out of college in a lot of debt. On the benefits side, anything creative you can do works well. Paid time off is the most important to them. They really like the cafeteria benefit plans, which I know all of us have much difficulty doing anymore because of all the legislation and the testing and all that, but they would really love to have their money and make their own decisions on however much you're going to give them. They love gym memberships, tuition reimbursement in addition to the student loan aid that we talked about, on-site medical care, and believe it or not, free meals and beverages. There's a lot of articles out there right now about how they feel it fosters collaboration. You know, they sit down, they're talking, and so free meals and beverages are becoming important to this group of millennials. The more creative you can be with the benefit, the better. They are less knowledgeable about their benefits, and they're also less likely to feel that health is the most important benefit that they receive. So you're going to need to communicate benefits frequently with this generation so they understand what they have and the value of what they have. Then let's talk about coaching for just a minute. So there is a study out there about, you know, how the generations like to be coached. And the millennials, I thought this was really interesting, really want the coaching focused on their weaknesses. 67% said, I would like the coaching to be focused on my weaknesses, and only 33% said, I'd like the coaching to be focused on improving my strengths. So I'd ask you to just, you know, take a minute and think about, you know, as you go back into your workforces, what could you potentially do differently with your total rewards package for this generation? And keep this in mind, millennials leave when they don't see enough opportunities for leadership development. That leadership development doesn't necessarily have to be inside of the organization. They can certainly gain leadership development through not-for-profit commitments. Also, if they feel your organization is neglecting improving their skills, they're going to leave. If they're not happy with their income level, they're going to leave. And then finally, if they don't feel the company is providing goods and services that make a real positive difference in people's lives, you're going to lose your millennials. So let's wrap up my area here with some leadership tips for this generation. So just communicate with them how they prefer. You know, keep in mind what we talked about, you know, text, iPod, podcast, those kinds of things. Accommodate their differences, their coaching styles, what they're looking for. Create those comp and benefit choices anywhere you can. Be flexible in your leadership style and just remember what works for them. And then respect their competence and their initiative and nourish their retention absolutely the best that you can with them.
That's great. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for sharing that. A lot of good stuff there. And I want to take a step towards the PI portion of this webinar. And I want to really start with this quote right here. I came across this quote not too long ago from Jamie Gutson, the Chief Marketing Officer at Wonderman. And what she says is that millennials are, in essence, venture consumers. They're not looking to fill a slot in a faceless company any more than a good venture capitalist is looking to toss money at a faceless startup. They're looking strategically at opportunities to invest in a place where they can make a difference, preferably a place that itself makes a difference. And this takes us to the second component to both attaining and retaining millennials, which is giving them the opportunity to make a difference, to have an impact. As I mentioned earlier, I've heard so many folks come through training repeating the oft-repeated refrain, right? Millennials are job hoppers. They only stick around for 1 to 2 years, then they just move on. And when you look at the numbers, there's a lot of mixed data on this. And what I'd like to posit is this. This is my belief. Millennials move on when they've determined they can no longer make a difference, or when they determine they can make a larger impact someplace else. So how can we determine what making an impact means to a person? Well, it's really dependent upon two distinct elements. Number one, their personal passion, and number two, their PI. You can't have one without the other. And as a client of advisor, you have 50% of the equation down. You have your employees' PIs, and we'll get to how each tribe defines an impact in just a moment. But what's the only way you can determine an employee's passion? Well, this piece requires a conversation. What do they believe in? What's important to them? Then give them the opportunities to make a difference in ways that connect to their passion. And as we're going through the rest of the webinar, I'll try and tie back to this. So let's make that PI connection. A person's highest drive is going to give us the insight we need to keep our people engaged and to feel as though they're making the impact that they desire. So I want to walk through each of the drives and talk about what that word impact means to different people. We'll start with high A's. Remember that high A's get their self-confidence internally from being able to put their imprint on the world. High A's want to change how things work. They need that independence and freedom to do their own thing and the challenges and control so that their ideas can make that change to the world around them. For a high A to feel that they're making an impact, they have to be able to be focused on projects that they find challenging, projects where they can take apart how things have been done before and put them back together their way so that they can control how it works. Both that challenge and the control are important. Then they want to move on to the next project. The more that a high A feels as though they have to do something exactly as someone else has done it before, or the more they feel they have to jump through hoop after hoop asking permission or for approval after approval, the more likely they are to jump ship. The other piece to this is that there has to be a conversation with the high A as to what they do find challenging. Because if they are just receiving projects that the organization thinks would be a good challenge for them, but the high A doesn't feel the same way, problems can arise. Note that last point there. A conversation has to be had, and Cassandra was talking about this. Millennials want to feel connected to their organization, and they want their organization to feel connected with them. That's why they're more reticent to join the more hierarchical companies. So they want that network feel that lets them have a say in what they do and how they do it. As you find yourself hiring some high A's for more entry-level positions, ones where they really can't change that much or have that much control, but maybe you're hoping that they can be promoted into roles where their needs will be met more fully, you have to be very upfront, saying something like, look, high A, this first year is going to be tough for you. For you to be able to really have the impact you want here, you first have to learn how everything works. And that's the purpose of you being in this more entry-level position. Once I feel you understand the key pieces and understand them to the company's standards, we can talk about getting you in a more fitting role. What you'll find in that scenario is that if you've got a smart, driven, self-aware high A, they will work to get to that point where they know how the business works to move up. Then you just need to make sure that you have a position open where they can have more control. Because the longer you keep them in that no-control entry-level position after they've mastered it to your liking, the less likely they are to stay. And that's when high A's start thinking about finding other opportunities. High B's, on the other hand, get their self-confidence externally from being noticed for what makes them an individual, what makes them special. And that's why high B's are always looking to go out and change how people feel so that they can be seen positively by those around them. They're highly motivated by personal, positive praise. For high B's to feel as though they have an impact, they have to have opportunities to change how people feel. Many times this translates to persuading, motivating, or selling. Chances to make people feel positive about something that the high B finds exciting. Like the high A's, it means changing the world around them, though for high B's, the focus is on people and how those people feel rather than things. So my little brother, Reed, is the highest B millennial, and he was not that long ago in Ann Arbor, Michigan, working on some research for one of his professors in public policy. He was determining the correlation between how a child was raised, their parents' education, income, whether or not that child was abused, and using that analysis to determine how each of those factors plays a corollary role in that child's future income. This meant hours and hours and hours sitting in front of a computer, breaking through data in Excel spreadsheets and putting it through complicated formulas. Now, one might not think that this would be ideal for a highest B, but for my little brother, the reward was twofold. Number one, he's really passionate about this stuff. He was incredibly interested in what the information would yield and the impact it would have on public policy in Detroit. Now, when he completes the research, and this is the other piece, he gets to present it to his professor, enabling him to sell that information. If either one of those pieces had been left out, the passion or the persuasion, likely Reed would have hated that work. He needs to be passionate about the work, and as a high B, he has to have the ability to persuade others of its merit. With both of those pieces in place, well, he's happy as a clam. Like the high A's, if you're going to be putting a highest B into an entry-level role where they're not likely to have the ability to persuade, but might have that ability later, that needs to be made explicitly clear at the onset. There needs to be that level setting of expectations where the high B sees the clear path to get to that point of persuasion, and as they incrementally move towards that more fitting role, they need to be positively noticed by the management. Well, what about high C's? High C's get their self-confidence from familiarity, both with the people and the processes of their day, which takes time. Whereas high A's and high B's are proactive drives, trying to change the world around them, the C drive is our first reactive drive. This is where being in touch with a person and what's important to them is so important. Knowing what they're interested in, their background, and making sure to connect it to what they're doing, then giving them the opportunity to create a sense of family with those people around them and the predictability within the process of their day is what's going to connect with a high C. A really good friend of mine, Jen, worked as the support for a sales team of a third-party logistics company in Indianapolis, and she worked there for about 5 years. She was passionate about what she did. She helped her clients, everyone from medical suppliers to big box stores, get their goods on time and to the right location. But 2 years ago, her company was acquired, and everything she was passionate about changed. Her role went from assisting this team of men and women that she had gotten to know and really enjoyed to being the assistant for a mix of the people she knew and a group of salespeople from the parent company. Her family, her work family, was completely shaken up. Some of her best friends even got laid off in the transition. And every process she had been familiar with changed to align with the parent company's goals. And not a single new manager had taken the time to help familiarize her with the new duties, nor did they really take the time to get to know her as a person. Over the course of a year, her passion fizzled as more of her original sales family left and all of her daily processes continued to shift. And to high C's, very often, their passion is tied to how much they care for the people that they work with and how much they feel cared for by the organization. Remember, the C drive is social. And as her work family dispersed, so did her passion. As of 6 months ago, she left to move to a competitor. Those factors for each drive that cause millennials to leave are, for the most part, controllable if the manager and the organization has the awareness and the skill to give their employees the opportunities to make an impact. Let's talk about the final drive, the D drive. Like the C drive before it, this is the second of the reactive drives. High Ds aren't necessarily trying to transform the world around them. They're looking at it and sorting what they see into 2 buckets, right and wrong. They get their self-confidence externally from knowing what perfect is. And that definition of perfect helps them to understand what is right and what is wrong. That way they can focus their energy on what they need to get back to that right. This is why high Ds are motivated by clear expectations, timely feedback, and a sense of fairness in the workplace. My eldest brother, Jake, who's also a millennial, is a high D. He teaches middle school English in Nashville, Tennessee, and education is his passion. He loves to take students that struggle to read at the beginning of the year and have them reading and understanding, to a certain extent, Shakespeare by the end of the year. That's his definition of perfect, and he is really good at what he does. The days that he wants to, well, run off and quit are the days that the district creates new standards, changing the definition of perfect with no explanation as to the why and no direction as to how they're supposed to get there. His school is in a lower to middle class area. More than half of the students are on free or reduced lunch programs. For the most part, students were entering his 7th grade classroom at a 5th grade reading level and exiting ready for 8th grade, which is really pretty impressive. Then, just a couple years back, the state standards changed. His students needed to go from being able to read at a 7th grade level, in 7th grade, to being able to read at an 11th grade level, leaving 7th grade. Now, don't ask me for the logic. It's something about Tennessee wanting to be more competitive as a state in the education world. Anyway, that year, Jake was very close to walking away from the profession, especially since the bureaucrats who were determining this new standard weren't doing anything to show teachers how to meet this new grade. Needless to say, Jake spent many days furious. And while his passion is still trumping his high due want for clear expectations, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years, with a few more shifts to the education system, he walks away, which would be a huge loss to both his students and to the school. So whether we like it or not, the millennial generation is here, and it's now the biggest generation in the workforce. Our ability to adapt to them, creating an attractive compensation and benefits package, as well as the ability of our organization and managers to facilitate an environment in which each employee can make an impact, well, those are the two factors that will make us competitive in attracting and retaining millennials to our organization. So I'd love to take just a few minutes, and as I said, there's a question box on the right of your screen, and if you have any questions for either myself or Cassandra, feel free to jot those in there, and we'll take the time to respond to each one. While you're taking the time to jot those questions down, I did want to let you know about a few upcoming events. We do have some PI practitioner workshops coming up in Fishers, or in the Indianapolis area, November 8th and 9th. We've got one coming up in Grand Rapids the 15th and 16th, and we actually are doing, for the first time, we're doing an open session in Chicago, December 7th and 8th, and then we're actually moving into our brand new offices December 13th and 14th for that training. So if you wanted to sign up for any of those, just go to our website, advisorusa.com, and click on the Register for Training tab. We also have the Managing People to Perform, which is the one-day training that focuses on self-awareness and then how you can adapt to your team. And that's going to be November 8th, the 15th, the 7th, and the 13th. And you'll see the locations right there. Again, you'll see all this information on our website if you have more questions about that. We also would like for you to, if you're active on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, to connect with us. You'll find an Advise a Company page on each of these social media platforms. On LinkedIn, you'll also find individual pages, including all of our management consultants and client service team. In particular, on LinkedIn, you'll want to follow Dr. Frederica Joyner so that you don't miss out on any of our current series of posts on thinking small about big ideas. If you have not met her, Frederica is our leadership and organizational development consultant. She is the designer and primary facilitator of our Leadership Academy and is also one of our experts on emotional intelligence. So to follow her, first just click on a post. So I'll wait a few more minutes. I don't see any questions at this point, but I'll leave the questions open for just a few minutes. Yeah, again, I'm not seeing any questions, so thank you all so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful fall weekend as it's finally getting chilly, and that everyone has a wonderful and safe Halloween. So I'll leave the question pane open for a few more minutes, and if you're heading off, have a wonderful, and I just got in the question pane, thank you, Brandon, go Cubs, and I 100% agree, go Cubs. That's the most important thing this weekend is the World Series. So I'll leave it open for a few minutes, but thank you all so much and have a great weekend. And Cassandra, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing anything else, so I'm going to close it down. So thanks everyone so much. Have a good one.